Could we get our first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season sometime in the next week? Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Okay, hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. It's great to see you on this late Wednesday afternoon. We now have two areas of potential tropical development, one in the western Atlantic and a new one in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. We'll highlight another tropical wave coming into our eastern areas over the weekend. We'll talk about that, but for a lot of us, it has been a very hot and dry Wednesday, and we'll have more on that coming up as well. I appreciate the support you give me here at Meteo Mundo, so thank you so much for liking this video, and we will get started. Now we're going to start off with what's happening in the northwest Bahamas. Yes, we do not have our satellite data, unfortunately. Data outage, nothing I can do about that, but we do have the radar, and I want to talk about that because that's the big story. And I'm talking about some of the northwest Bahamas, especially Walker's Key, Grand Bahama, and Bimini, where we still have very heavy rain falling right now. Take a look at this. This is the radar loop over the last 6 hours. There really hasn't been a big change. There's a huge plume of moisture here, and the storms are training or developing on top of each other, which means we haven't broken this rain in these areas for a while. So there's ongoing flooding in some spots, and if you live in these areas, let us know. As of this taping, there's a severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect for these areas as well. So flooding, some severe weather, there could be some funnel clouds, but this is a bad situation in Walker's Key and Grand Bahama and Alistown because, again, we're not letting up this persistent rain. This huge moisture plume continues to bring flooding through those areas and portions of South Florida as well. And again, you get as far east as Abaco and Andros and New Providence. Yes, they've had some rain, but nothing like they've been seeing here in especially Grand Bahama and Bimini. And again, I've actually taken the alpha down on the radar so we can actually see the outline of the island there, because that's how heavy and persistent the rain has been. So Freeport, Lucaya, West End, High Rock, again, it's a situation where, first of all, we have very heavy rain with localized flooding likely. It's going to persist. Small craft should be in port right now. And again, this goes along with a flood watch that is currently in effect, and that goes all the way until Friday. There could be very persistent rain the remainder of today, but much more rain trying to develop again Thursday and at least early on Friday. It's going to take a while to push all of this away. Now, the area of interest, our invest area, is actually centered right over Central Florida, right over Orlando, Walt Disney World. And again, it's not developing over land, but we can see the storms trying to kind of twist around that broad center. Now, eventually, as this low begins to pull away and gets into the western Atlantic, in this area in yellow, we could have some development. That's kind of area number one to monitor, and we'll talk about the impacts to places like Bermuda with that system coming up. But for our friends in the northwest Bahamas, it's a flood threat for sure. And that flood watch continues through Friday. Again, the Department of Meteorology in the Bahamas talking about 2 to 4 inches of rain and locally higher amounts, and for Grand Bahama and Bimini and Walker's Key, it's the locally higher amounts because some of that has already fallen today or even more than that. So please be careful of the localized flooding and the severe thunderstorms. There could be some funnel clouds that go along with this activity as well. But a really rough day in those areas. And again, just a little bit farther south, it's not nearly as bad. So that's the current situation there. Again, I don't have the satellite data, so I do apologize for that. Wish I could show it to you. But what we really want to talk about anyway is the heat, because there has not been nearly as much rain for today outside of the northwest Bahamas. And these are your feels like temperatures at the hour. This is a big story right now. We've had a few showers through Central America, but you can see currently Cancun, it feels like 111. Belize City, it feels like 114 Fahrenheit. 108 right now in San Ignacio. 110 in San Pedro Sula. By the way, 110 Fahrenheit is 43.3 degrees Celsius. So as it's dried out, it's gotten very hot again. Now look, there is some rain on the Pacific side of Central America, but closer to the Caribbean, it's been a much drier day. Boy, we talked about all this rain in the Cayman Islands. Now look what happens in Georgetown there in Grand Cayman. You get dry day, it's back up to 107 for feels like temperature. It is absolutely no better for my friends in Jamaica. Again, a dry afternoon. Montego Bay, Kingston, feels like number 108. Please be very cautious of this heat. If you can get indoors in the afternoon hours, if you can drink plenty of water, you got to do it, guys. It's no better across the Dominican Republic or Haiti. Feels like numbers there for places like Santo Domingo, Punta Cana, Puerto Plata, at least at 105 in most spots, if not even higher. Excessive heat warning continues for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, but all the Virgin Islands very hot right now. San Juan currently it feels like 103. There could be a few showers in this area later tonight, and we'll try and take some of that nighttime activity because if we don't get the rain then, again, it's exceptionally dry. We have a little bit of Saharan dust that's in play. Feels like temperatures for the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, Anguilla, St. Bartholomew, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Antigua, anywhere from 95 or higher, but a lot of that right around triple digits for Dominica and Martinique. Again, right around 100 in St. Lucia, Barbados, 97, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, 98. It's been drier in Trinidad and Tobago, so they've hit 100 or a little bit higher there. And on over to our friends in the ABC Islands, it's no better situation there. Slightly, believe it or not, 100 in places like Curacao and Bonaire is slightly cooler than what they've seen. Let's take a look at the winds, by the way, here while we're here. Let me throw on the gusts. Just to mention that Curacao had a 30-mile-an-hour wind there, but take a look in the far northwest side of South America. How about a 51-mile-an-hour gust there? Otherwise, we've had a little bit breezy conditions through places like St. Croix, 22-mile-an-hour wind there at Christiansted. And again, the winds have been blustery here, and then closer to where that area is going to try and develop, there's been a little in the way of some gustier winds as well. So let's get into the forecast. Several different things we're going to look at. First thing is we're going to take a look at what's going to be happening over the next 5 days. Then we're going to get into the extended with these two areas and how this could play out. First thing we'll do is we'll start back into our area plagued with the very heavy rain. Let this be said right now. I don't expect there to be big breaks in the rain at least until Friday morning. I hope that we start to see at least the intensity of the rain come down a little bit. But again, for Grand Bahama and Walker's Key, and even, places like Abaco and Andros and New Providence, we could be in this rain through at least Friday morning. Finally, as that low pulls away, it breaks apart. But it really is area specific because you get a little bit farther south towards Exuma and the Acklins and back down towards the Turks, the Caicos. And although they could see some downpours, you guys could see some downpours, it's just not going to be as persistent to cause any real flooding issues there. So again, a very wet forecast. Flooding will continue for South Florida. Cuba could still be fairly wet as well. Now again, as this low moves off, we don't really see a huge development here on the GFS model. It's a lot different on the European model, and we'll look at that. Kind of more of an elongated system, but for Bermuda, already a little bit of rain, but we're going to get more in the way of some activity here the next few days. And again, depending on the model, we'll talk about the intensity of the winds that might be coming into your area as well, but a little bit more active pattern. And again, it all is going to depend on if that really tries to wrap up into a closed low. Now you get into the western areas here, and I know that it's been a little bit drier for today, but generally speaking, this is going to be a very active forecast. Remember, we still have our Central American gyre as basically an area of broad spin that's not moving. But now we have two areas of potential interest, one in the Eastern Pacific and one in the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. And just look how wet it is going to stay. So I know that we're still needing some rain in these areas, but it's great to talk about all of this green on the map and all of this rich tropical moisture to give you that opportunity each and every day, not just for the next couple of days, but at least for the next 5 or 7 days over places like Cancun and Cozumel and Belize City and Roatan, and really all of Central America has that opportunity. It's going to be interesting how it plays out in the Northwest Caribbean. Again, it looks to be a bit drier in places like Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. There is, and we'll talk more about this, a potential little system trying to develop in the Southwest Caribbean by the end of this forecast period. But you get into the Greater Antilles in general and the Turks and the Caicos, and it's a drier forecast, guys. There's not going to be a lot of rain for Santo Domingo or Puerto Plata or Santiago de los Caballeros. Towards the end, the weekend, a few more showers might try to come back in. But this is a hazy, hot, and dry forecast for San Juan, St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, Road Town, the Leeward Islands, especially the northern side, okay? Anguilla and St. Kitts and Nevis and Montserrat and Guadeloupe, a few spotty showers over the next 5 days, some Saharan dust that comes along with this. Now we do have our next tropical wave trying to come in, and from Martinique south, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, a slightly higher chance for rain over the weekend. That being said, and I mentioned this, these tropical waves are far south in latitude. They're mainly going to be slamming into South America, places like Suriname and Guyana and Venezuela with higher rain chances. We got to take these waves and lift them north to get better moisture content over the Leeward Islands and better rain chances. Eventually that's going to happen, and we still have our tropical wave train with multiple waves behind this one coming in over the weekend as well. So the chance is going to be there. It's just getting that in the right spot. But we can clearly see, and I mentioned this last week, the big pattern shift. The areas that were exceptionally wet are now much drier. The areas that have been very, very dry now have the opportunity for the richer tropical moisture and, again, potential tropical development in the Southwest Gulf. So let's break down the rain chances in your area over the next 3 days. Still very high for the Bahamas over the next few days, and then a little bit lower beginning on Friday, breaking apart, but still there. And then at least some scattered showers over the weekend, but getting rid of the heavier rain. Again, it's more of the spottier downpours in the central to southeast Bahamas. A very dry forecast for the Turks and Caicos. Still relatively wet for northern and western Cuba. A little bit drier off towards the eastern side of the island. I put a 40% chance for rain in the Cayman Islands. That could be a little bit too aggressive, to be honest, but we'll take a look at things. There could at least still be some tropical moisture coming in. I don't want to dry you guys out too much, but we saw how hot it was in Georgetown when you didn't get the rain. Now, Belize City and Cancun and Cozumel, I might be a little conservative. These numbers might be a little bit too low, but the bottom line is healthy rain chances, not just for the next 3 days, but well into the weekend and even early next week. Jamaica, it's about a 30% chance for showers there, guys. Let me know how it's going, but I know it's been drier and I don't have a lot of rain in the forecast for you, at least through the beginning of the weekend. The Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands is even drier. Now, again, Bermuda, we'll start to see better rain chances. We'll go back and look at what's going to be happening to Bermuda when we look at the tropical situation, but the rain chances will be going higher there. Anguilla, St. Eustatius, again, very dry, relatively speaking, a few downpours, but many dry hours and locations for Antigua and Barbuda as well. Guadeloupe, Grenada, maybe a little bit better, spottier shower there, a little bit farther south. Now, Guyana has a decent chance for rain over the next few days. And again, as that just tropical moisture surge comes in, we'll get some downpours from time to time. Barbados is drier there. Trinidad and Tobago, slightly higher chance, better chance Friday and into the weekend. And the ABC Islands, again, do look to remain fairly dry. Now, looking at your wave heights, we're going to kick up the seas again through portions of the central and the northwest Caribbean, close to that Central American gyre. Look at the waves in the Pacific, and of course the difference in the wave directions as well. Just a lot of wave action coming into Central America, but more than 7-foot waves are possible there in those areas in green. We could also have some higher waves coming towards Bermuda and overall the Western Atlantic a little bit later into the week. So for Bermuda, and again, kind of getting into the tropical outlook here, we see that the rain begins to move into your area starting. Again, we've had a little bit, but we're going to get more over the next few days. And with the GFS model, we are at least going to get some breezy conditions and more spotty showers through at least Saturday. The European model is actually going to be stronger in this area, but it might try and wrap up the rain a little bit farther west. So even though it's a tighter system, the GFS model might be the one that brings you a little bit more rain, but it's a more active forecast for Bermuda and something that I'm going to be monitoring. Now, in the Central America area here over the next 5 days, it's still all about just this broad spin. Nothing really developing there as of yet. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to extend this out. And as I'm doing so, if you haven't hit that like button, do me a favor, click that like button. It's been a struggle for today, guys. Just has. And if you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, thank you for subscribing and supporting the channel. I appreciate it. So when I extend this out in time a little bit more, you're going to start to see a little bit more twist here in the Southwest Gulf, but even the eastern side of the Pacific. There's just a ton of moisture and wind energy that's going to be situated in this area. And it's going to be even pulling in more moisture from the Southwest Caribbean. And again, towards the end of this forecast, it gets a little interesting because you get another little area here. So multiple areas of interest. A ton of tropical moisture coming in, heavy rainfall, potential development tropic-wise as well. We still have our tropical waves driving through, still relatively low latitude, but you notice that that moisture coming off of South America feeds in. And so we eventually get more activity in the Northwest Caribbean as well. But man, oh man, is it going to be exceptionally wet here. Let's look at overall vorticity. Again, this is spin. It's not at the surface, but it is at the lower levels of the atmosphere. So it lets me see where I need to be keeping a close eye on. I'm going to take away these formation zones just so we can get a broader look. First thing I actually want to look at here is the spin coming off of Florida and then moving up the United States East Coast. Notice it's very elongated and then gets picked up by a mid-latitude cyclone coming off of the United States Northeast and quickly races away. The European model, and I'll show you this coming up, develops a closed low off of the coastline of Georgia and the Carolinas, and then kind of holds it together a little bit longer, but then it gets whisked away as well. But the European model is much more aggressive with that closed low. Now in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, this is going to be a watch and wait approach because it's going to be several days before we see anything really try and wrap up. But you can see all this vorticity or spin in the atmosphere. And again, I've mentioned the word many times, active, but that's what it's going to be. A lot of rain, some potential tropical development both in the eastern Pacific, the southwest Gulf of Mexico, potentially even the northwest Caribbean as we get towards the later part of this extended forecast, which takes us deeper into next week. So all of those things are things that we're going to want to monitor. If I go over to the wind here, so let me switch the model over to the wind. This is going to be your surface winds. Okay, so we were looking at the kind of lower atmosphere composite spin. But when we're actually looking at the winds at the surface, you can just see, look at all of this wind, guys. The purples get you, into the 20 knot range. The whites get you into the 30 knot range. And there's a lot of that in a very broad area. So this is why I don't want to focus on any one spot, but I expect this to be very active there. And even again, towards the end of this period, look at all of that wind energy picking up. The winds are going to be driving through the Caribbean here and hitting all of that moisture and just that huge broad spin overall. Very active forecast in this area. Now the European model, okay? This is gonna loop a couple of times and we'll talk about this area is where we need to watch. So when the loop picks back up here in just a second, we're gonna follow what's happening out of Florida first. Here we go. All right, the loop begins again. How far did I take this out? Starting now. Watch the area coming off of Florida. Look how tightly clustered these lows are, guys. And again, 50 ensemble members, a lot of them pick up on that. Quickly moves away, west of Bermuda. Then next week, look at all these ensemble members picking up on areas of low pressure, mainly in the Bay of Campeche there in the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. So those are the two areas to monitor. I'm a little bit more inclined to be very interested here. This is an area to focus in on early, and we'll see if this develops in the next 48 to 72 hours. Again, west of Bermuda. And then just look at all of these lows, some of them over land, but eventually a lot of them into the southwest Gulf of Mexico, and just the surge of moisture it will continue to drive in to that area. Let's talk about rain totals real quickly. So now you're looking at the GFS model, and again, let me take off the formation zones. But again, it's the same areas that we talked about getting all of that rain. And the GFS model, I think, is finally doing a little bit better job here. I want to be clear, they're still underdoing it here in the northwest side of the Bahamas, but we're now finally getting that 5-6 inches in a couple of spots. And again, this is additional rain. It's not what's fallen, it's the additional rain. So another 3 or 4 inches is possible here. It's going to be rough, guys. We've had a foot of rain or more in portions of South Florida already. And you can just see it's almost following the warm current, the Gulf Stream all the way up, right? Bermuda misses the heaviest rain, but should get a couple of inches of rain out of this. And again, the GFS is much more elongated with that rain, and the European model is going to try and spin up more of a closed low. But now you get into portions of Central America, and you can see just how much rain the model has on here. Again, just spotting it, several spots where we could have some pretty heavy rain. It's very aggressive with the rain in central portions of Belize, even towards the coast. Again, that's nice to be talking about this. Hopefully that's going to do a lot of good. Look at all of the rain in the Pacific side, more than a foot in a lot of spots. Even heavier rain here towards Panama and Costa Rica. So this is exceptionally wet. Then you get into places like Jamaica, and if we can catch maybe a downpour that gives us an inch of rain later in the period, we'll take it. But there's just not a lot of rain, relatively speaking. We've dried out pretty quickly here, guys. Same thing for the Dominican Republic. An isolated, decent rain chances there as far as putting on maybe more than a ½ inch of rain. We're a little bit more aggressive with some potential overnight showers here in Puerto Rico. Seeing a little bit more moisture off towards the east. But as far as the Leeward Islands go, guys, just a real quick broad brush, not much there. Even Trinidad and Tobago is drier. You got to get inland to South America to see that moisture really moving through some of the other areas that I've mentioned. But it's very clear to see overall where we're dry and where we're wet and where that moisture is surging up. That's the GFS model. European model is about the same. I mean, the greens are your very low rainfall totals. That's the Lesser Antilles. A lot of the Greater Antilles as well till you get to the western side of Cuba. Look how wet it's going to be across Central America. The bullseye of rain, by the way, we're trying to develop that area of low pressure. And then as that system pulls away, the heavier rain up the United States East Coast, maybe just west of Bermuda. Friends, I appreciate you. You can find us through all of social media. That's where you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. You have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below. But obviously things are heating up. Certainly a lot of things to watch out for here over the week ahead. I appreciate you. Thank you for liking and subscribing. You take care. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.